This is TWiT.
We've talked in the past about a number of different, really unfortunate instances of people being harassed at the border, and this whole issue of do you use a biometric or do you use a password when the border guards challenge you and demand to have access to your smartphone or laptop or whatever. There was the case of a natural-born U.S. citizen, Sid Bikanavar, who was at the time, and probably still is because only 2 years ago, a NASA engineer who was detained by U.S. Customs and Border Protection in 2017, pressured to hand over his NASA-issued phone and PIN so that the Border Protection agents could get into it. This was for no cause, and in spite of the fact that the work-issued phone could have contained sensitive information relating to his employment at the space agency, and in spite of the fact that NASA employees are obligated to protect all work-related information. The CBP officer returned his phone half an hour later, saying it had been searched using, quote, algorithms, unquote. There was another instance of
those algorithms,
and I was thinking, well, what is that? Is that supposed to mean that
magic.
people looked at it, so we weren't looking at your photos, but algorithms were? I don't know. There was an artist, Aaron Gach, he's another natural-born U.S. citizen who was forced to unlock his phone after returning from putting on a gallery installation in Brussels. That particular installation focused on mass incarceration, government control, and political dissent. Is that why he had to turn his device over? We don't know, but he did for no cause. Diane May, a college professor and retired U.S. Air Force officer, was detained for 2 hours at Miami International Airport upon returning home from a vacation in Europe. At the time that the lawsuit was filed in 2017, May said that the encounter left her feeling humiliated and violated. She explained that she worried that border officers, again, without cause or reason, would read her email messages and texts, look through her photos, and so forth. She said that this was her life, and a border officer held it in the palm of his hand. She joined the lawsuit, which was brought by the ACLU and the EFF, because she strongly believed the government should not have the unfettered power to invade our privacy without probable cause. Okay, so since this podcast has been underway, because it goes back to 2009, so for the past 10 years, that's when U.S. border agents obtained the right to legally search electronic devices of travelers at borders without any specific cause or suspicion, in the interest of protecting our borders and enforcing U.S. border security. Then in 2016, 3 years ago, that law was revised to require reasonable suspicion, unquote, for anything beyond basic searches. But that still allowed agents to require travelers to unlock phones and gave them free rein to read messages and other basic information, again, without a probable cause. So what is significant is that last Tuesday, a federal court in Boston ruled that suspicion-free, warrantless searches of travelers' electronic devices at U.S. border entry points are unconstitutional. The decision comes from a lawsuit, which was Alasaad versus McAleenan, filed against the Department of Homeland Security in 2017 by the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the EFF on behalf of 11 travelers. 10 of them were legal residents of the U.S., and one was a lawful permanent resident, all of whom were forced into warrantless searches of their mobile phones and laptops at the border, including the 3 that I just mentioned. Sophia Cope, a senior staff attorney with the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, said of this ruling, quote, "This is a great day for travelers who can now cross the international border without fear that the government will, in any absence of suspicion, ransack the extraordinarily sensitive information we all now carry in our electronic devices." And reading into this a little bit more and doing some digging, I noted that it does remain legal for border agents to look through the devices of travelers who get referred for a secondary inspection. So during the primary inspection, travel documents and passports are reviewed. That's what most of us experience. I'm sure you just did, Leo, and I just did.
Oh, yeah.
Coming back into the U.S., where they just ask, like, where have you been? Why were you gone? And so forth.
What'd you buy?
And then and then just kind of wave you through.
Right.
If a secondary inspection is deemed to be needed, then it's the case that officers may still search phones, thumb drives, computers, and other electronic devices to determine whether they should let somebody into the country or to identify potential legal violations. So having read that, I'm not quite sure what everyone's jumping up and down about, because it looks like, you could still be pulled off to the side and given that. But this does seem like it's movement in the right direction. According to the ACLU, the Boston District Court's order puts an end to the authority that CBP and ICE had been granting themselves to search and seize travelers' devices for purposes beyond enforcing immigration and customs laws, which was the umbrella under which they were doing that. At this point, border officers are required to demonstrate individualized suspicion of contraband, unquote, before they can search a traveler's device. So, that does sound like they've raised the bar to a useful level. And when I think back about 10 years ago or before the era of smartphones, when you think about it, Leo, we used to just, before smartphones, we didn't have something that did contain a virtual record of our lives. If you're using Instagram, as I was when I was traveling, in order to sort of create a little travel log for my friends and family who were here, that's recording everything we do. All of my text messages, they're boring in my case about, when I'll be home for dinner. But it is. If you read through the contents of someone's phone, you pretty much know a huge amount about them. So, the fact that we're now carrying a record of our life, why does that suddenly mean it's, that border entry agents suddenly should have a right to what amounts to an electronic frisking? And so it's looking like maybe that we're going to, we will be putting an end to that. So that seems like a good thing.
Yes.